The Beaches podcast is going to give you everything you want to know about a beach before you go there. I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to check out our website, www.sandee.com. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
All right, so picture this. Indiana, what comes to mind? Cornfields, basketball. Sure, those are classics.
Yeah, can't go wrong with those.
But our listener is on to something a little different today. They're asking about beaches. Beaches in Indiana.
Interesting.
Like sandy shores, Lake Michigan, the whole 9 yards. We're diving into some intriguing territory with this one. Plus, gotta love a good curveball.
Definitely piques the curiosity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So to kick things off, we've got a request here that's, well, let's just say it's all about embracing nature in its purest form. Think beaches, but maybe with a little less fabric involved.
Now we're venturing into some uncharted waters. Literally.
Right. Okay, so, listener, you sent in a request about Indiana and nude beaches, and that kind of threw us for a loop. Not that we shy away from a challenge, of course.
We're all about exploration here. But when it comes to actually finding designated nude beaches in Indiana, well, that's where things get a little tricky.
Tricky how?
Tricky in the sense that, well, Indiana law doesn't specifically address it. There's no official clothing optional designation for beaches, so anything goes. Right? Not exactly.
I see where you're going with this.
It's more like you could technically run into some legal gray areas if you're, let's say, overly enthusiastic about your birthday suit. Public indecency laws and all that.
Makes sense. So not exactly a clear-cut yes or no situation.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to, be aware of the local customs and maybe err on the side of caution, especially with something like this.
Right. Safety and respect above all else, as always. But hey, speaking of unexpected twists and turns, we did stumble upon some interesting tidbits about Indiana's relationship with, well, let's just say clothing optional lifestyles.
Oh, do tell.
So apparently, back in the day, there was this whole movement in Indiana centered around, get this, fruit growing and naturism, like literally living life au naturel, if you catch my drift.
Now, that's a side of Indiana history I haven't encountered before.
Right. Who knew those two things went together? Apparently, they had these whole communities dedicated to it. And we're talking decades ago, not some recent fad.
Fascinating. It just goes to show that there's always more to discover, even in places we think we know.
Absolutely. It's like you think you've got Indiana all figured out, cornfields, basketball, the whole deal, and then bam! You stumble upon a bunch of nudist fruit farmers from the 1950s. Talk about a plot twist.
History is full of surprises. Okay, so maybe Indiana's beach scene is a little more closed than our listener was hoping for.
And maybe a little less fruit-filled than those communities back in the day.
But hey, that doesn't mean an Indiana adventure has to be boring. You were talking about racing, agriculture, and basketball earlier. Now, those are three things Indiana knows how to do right.
It's funny you should mention that. I once read this article, and it was talking about how Indiana produces more race car drivers per capita than any other state.
Really? I wouldn't be surprised. It's like the Indy 500 is practically a national holiday there.
It's true. The energy, the crowds, the sheer speed of it all, it's an experience unlike any other.
Absolutely. And then you have the agricultural side, which is a whole different kind of impressive.
Oh, yeah, those endless fields of corn, the farm-to-table restaurants popping up all over the state.
It's like stepping back in time a little bit,
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Totally. And of course, we can't forget about basketball.
It's practically in their DNA at this point.
Yeah.
High school gyms, packed every Friday night, the legacy of legends like Larry Bird. It's more than just a game there. It's a way of life.
It's true. So even if you're not finding your, shall we say, natural beach experience, Indiana's still got a lot to offer.
More than meets the eye, as they say.
Exactly. So next time you're thinking about a trip, don't just skim over Indiana. You might be surprised at what you find. And hey, if you do happen to uncover any hidden nudist colonies while you're there, be sure to let us know.
We'll keep it our little secret.
Until next time, happy exploring.
Thanks for listening to the show, and be sure to tune in next week for your favorite episode about some of the best beaches and beach information in the world.